Today we're discussing proposals and formal reports. This is Chapter 10 in our class BUSA 200 for Business Communications. And we're going to have a conversation about business reports and proposals and some of the best practices as we go along. So today we're going to talk about a number of components of both of these types of proposals. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The preparation of business proposal is pretty important. This basic slide talks about the extensive uses of those particular types of proposals. Well, they're very meaningful to an organization because it requires you to put a lot of effort into creating a proposal. So there are different types of proposals. As you see here, there are internal proposals and external proposals. So internal proposals are those that basically present information, justify your insight, and also offer recommendation. External proposals can be a combination of different types of proposals, and we'll talk about those in just a few moments. So what does an informal proposal include? Well, it includes a combination of all of these areas that you see around here. And so the book goes into detail about explaining what they are, but high level, they'll talk about the problems, the proposals associated with it, and the schedules, how much staffing you may need to make it happen, the budget, and the conclusion. If you look on page 286, you'll notice that there's a really nice graphical illustration regarding informal proposals, I should say. Let's talk about formal proposals. Now, this is where it gets really extensive and goes into an extensive amount of details. You need to have a letter of transmission, abstract or summary, title page, table of contents, list of figures, introduction of the body, background information, proposals, staffing, budget, authorization, appendix, and you name it. So this is where there's so much information here. You're not simply writing to just write. You're really writing to persuade someone to either look at your position or to decide they're going to be using your business or organization based on what you have presented here. Now, there are many components regarding informal proposals, and I actually want you to review this information in your book. Now, you want to be able to do a number of things in your introduction. You want to do all these components here. You want to explain why you're writing this proposal, highlight the qualifications, determine what your hook is going to be. Why are you writing this? Are you trying to talk about there's a problem that we need to experience or manage through, or there are low cost issues we need to understand? Basically, you're trying to persuade them to seek opportunities to use your company or organization. Your background statement does a lot of things. It actually gives you information. It talks about your problems and your goals and goes into more detail regarding your actual overall proposal. The proposal plan and schedule does a number of similar activities, and so you can review more about these, but it basically helps the reader to understand what are you trying to communicate. It basically guides your reader to understanding your issues and potentially offering a realistic solution that says, hey, we can achieve these goals, we can make this happen. And so you have to understand that in these type of proposals, all the information you include is very important. Staffing. How are you going to support this organization, or how are you going to support this project? Well, this information communicates everything as it relates to staffing. So it's an important component of how do we make sure that we can meet the client's needs, serve their qualification, and basically be inclusive. Now, in this area, you may actually include resumes or background information on those people that will be involved with it. Budget authorization, how much it's going to cost you. So here, you basically can write a statement of cost, which is a centralized opportunity for you to itemize all of the figures and information and how much it's going to cost to make things happen. So you'll actually have an opportunity here to ask for the business or ask for the proposal and approval and make it easy for them to reply. Our next learning outcome develops and focuses on writing and editing formal business reports. Now, this is where there's a number of information here in your booklet that talks about how do you do this. Well, first of all, let's make sure we are very clear about a formal report is a document in which the writer analyzes these findings and drawings and conclusions, and they're really trying to intend to solve a problem. They're very similar in nature to formal proposals, but they basically are different based on length, organization, and the seriousness of tone. And so that gives you an idea about writing those proposals. Now, this is really complicated. I know people think, oh, I can write a proposal, no big deal, where it is more extensive than that. And so when you're thinking about writing these proposals, take a look at page 291. It goes into some details about what elements you may need in writing these types of proposals. And so in the formal business reports, more information is needed. You want to do some things before you get started. So take a step back and look at these steps here. You want to determine the purpose and the scope of the report. Anticipate the needs and what you need for the audience. Decide on a work plan and appropriate research methods. Conduct research methods using primary and secondary resources. And you may want to design graphics that help to clearly communicate your messages going forward. Now, what to review when you're editing these proposals? Well, because we are learning how to write effectively in business, there are many areas of opportunities for us to really improve our writing in this area. You do so by looking at all of these elements, trying to figure out how to make sure your writing is consistent. You know, what format should I use? What kind of headings should I use, or subheadings, or bullets? Is my information accurate? So you're asking yourself these particular questions. Is the mechanics of what I'm writing the right type of writing I need to be writing about? And then lastly, how can you make it look visually appealing? That's your graphical section, and that provides a good opportunity for you to take a step back and say, how can I make sure that my writing reaches these different 6 components? And so you'll see these on page 294 as it communicates all the visualization, the graphics, and basically making sure your facts and figures are correct in writing your information. So in this section, we're going to talk about collecting data from primary and secondary research. So of course, the first place you're going to look for is books and periodicals to basically look at what we call print resources. Now, these print resources include all these areas here, mostly online, and of course you can use the library resources to be able to provide information that will allow you to have really in-depth insight about what are you trying to get completed. So in this area, you'll see books. Obviously, we're very familiar with what those are. But what about periodicals? Well, it goes into more depth that periodicals are magazines and pamphlets and journals are comprised, of course, of scholarly articles. You are able to really use all of those resources that are digitized at your fingertips to get information. Before you prepare these proposal and formal reports, it's very important that you do your research and your homework in advance of that. And so there are a number of databases that you can look at. And so here are a variety of databases. You may not be familiar with some of these, but these are really good opportunities for you to consider all of these. LexisNexis, Factivia, JSTOR, Businesses, and EBSCO. These are all resources where you're trying to find in-depth information. Don't simply do only a Google search. Find more ways to go in depth and find information. And these help you to provide insight from those secondary sources. So when you're actually trying to Google information, I think Google is great. But you may want to do certain things. For example, you may want to determine how do you ensure that you're finding the right information. So you may have to do certain things like put quotation marks around exact words to be able to find it. Add define when searching for a definition, so it will actually define the word that you're looking for. Or use the word related based on related types of sites. So you can use these tips as you're developing your group project going forward. You can use these opportunities to really dig into how do you research and make sure that you have an opportunity to have really good, meaningful research before you begin to write your report. Now, this gives you some more information how to do so. You may be using asterisk, which is basically considered a wild card. And you can find information that may be unknown. And so you may be able to use this as you're typing information as well. And so it gives you some insight. These are different tips you can use to try to find information and research. And you can basically identify that, hey, I need more information. And so this is how you would find it, going in depth regarding that. Evaluating the credibility of internet resources. Well, you know, when you're actually typing information in regarding asking the question of a browser or a resource, you would assume that because you typed it in that what you get out is accurate information. Well, not always. You want to evaluate the credibility of the internet resource, and you want to determine what's the date of the article. So look for the date. When was it last updated? If it shows you that it was 5, 7, 8 years ago, maybe out of date. So go a little deeper and try to find out more information as it relates to the research that you're trying to find for a particular topic. You want to also ask yourself questions about the authority. Who publishes or sponsors that information? Do they have a reason why they may not give you all the details? You never know. What makes an authority an authority? And so this gives you an idea as well to go deeper as you're developing information. The content. More questions are regarding it. Is the purpose of the site to entertain or inform or to sell you something? Who's the intended audience? How does the content compare to somewhere else? There are so many informational components regarding the credibility of how do you make sure that what you're getting is accurate, that does not have any bias in it, and the facts seem reliable. So do your homework in advance. Now, there are other ways you can actually have resources and research being conducted. Some of the resources include things like SurveyMonkey or SurveyGizmo. You may do interviews. You may actually have an observation where you simply are going to watch interviews. So you may locate an expert. You may maintain that you want to conduct an interview for someone, and this gives you an idea that they may give you 10 minutes to talk to them about a particular topic. So you have to be very careful that you're prepared for that conversation. You maintain a good attitude. You have great timeliness. And you're really looking at trying to ascertain information that will give you what you need in your research. And all this is designed to make sure that you have a strong proposal and report with information that's well researched. Now let's go into learning objective 4. Talks a lot about this word here. You may have seen it in so many areas, but plagiarism is a serious issue. And so you want to give credit to where credit is due. Most of the research that you're picking up and that you're reviewing is someone else's work. So using information to document this, giving credit is ethical and offers benefits. It strengthens your argument, it protects you against plagiarism, and it instructs readers, and it also saves time. So you want to make sure that before you actually say, this is my work, that you determine who said that first, because typically someone has already communicated that information prior to you finding it. So to avoid plagiarism, you can really use this in your class with me, or you can use this in all of your classes. Let's just make sure we know what plagiarism is. To avoid plagiarism, you must give credit whenever you use the following: another person's ideas or opinions, any statistics or charts or drawings that are not common knowledge, another person's exact spoken word or written word, paraphrasing of that word as well, or at least their phrases, and then using what we call visual images of any kind. And so you have this battle with yourself to make sure that you do it right, because you want to give credit to those people where credit is due. Plagiarism is a very serious issue that we face in a number of schools, not so much at our university, but just overall. So take some time to be sure that you're doing a works cited page that gives us an idea to realize that you bought this work or found this work from another author and you're giving that person credit. So here are some things you can do to help yourself. You want to practice what they call the fine art of paraphrasing. Paraphrasing allows you to read the information and basically put it in your own words. So when you want to practice this, you want to do a number of things. You want to read the original work to comprehend its meaning. You want to use your own words and write out your version when you're looking at the original. Avoid repeating the same grammatical structure so people will realize that you created this on your own. And you also want to reread the original to be sure you covered the main points. This can be very challenging. So in order to be sure that you are prepared fully for this, just take some time and review the information, because if you read it first and understand it, then you can write it in your own words and it won't be as difficult for you. This is going to be another area. It's going to be the last piece we'll cover in this particular part A. But beware of overusing quotations. Use direct quotations for 3 purposes only, as the author states. You want to provide objective background data and establish the severity of a problem as seen by the expert. You want to be careful to consider using quotes to repeat identical phrasing, because you want to keep it precise, you want to keep it clear. And you want to duplicate exact wordings before discussing. So this is how you would use direct quotations for 3 key purposes. Now we'll move to section Part B.